for the honor of presenting at this prestigious conference. I want to begin with a story of what happened in our parish last year. A group of parishioners staged a protest against the LGBTI group that is established and functioning in the parish. They felt that the actions of the priest in allowing this group was a violation of the teachings of the church. So they went to the catechism and they said that where it says that the activity of same-sex person is intrinsically evil. And so they felt that by having an LGBTIQ group in the parish was directly in conflict with the teachings of the church. So strongly did they feel about that they demanded an answer from the leadership of the church. So we had a meeting. And at that meeting, we did not come to an agreement because, and I want to explain as I set this context, because when you look at the decision of the South African government and the rights of LGBTI persons in the Constitution, they use the logic of human dignity to say when you're speaking about the human dignity of a person, it means that they have a right to full expression, to be on the same level as all citizens. Now, there's a different logic in the Catholic Church, and that was argued by this group, that yes, LGBTI persons are made in the image of God, they've got equal dignity. Yes, the church is opposed to any act of violence against them. And very interestingly, by referring to homosexual acts as intrinsically evil and disordered, that is a very violent assessment. That is very violent language. It does not, and we saw from the group that in our church, it does not endear any form of love, any form of compassion, any form of understanding, but it creates hate, it creates antagonistic, because when you describe someone's expression of who they are as intrinsically evil and disordered, you are not creating a culture of acceptance, a culture of dignity. And so that is the problem. And that is what we saw in the conflict in our local church, that the church was divided into two groups in a context where the government has decriminalized and has afforded LGBTI persons full equal rights as citizens, as human beings, so that the expression of who they are in sense of seeking love, marriage, is the same as everyone else. Nobody chooses their sexuality. I didn't choose to be heterosexual. I don't even know when I became aware that I'm heterosexual. It is part of who I am. And the logic of the Constitution of South Africa is to say, let us follow the whole argument, the whole belief in human dignity to its logical conclusion. And that is to allow all citizens same rights, same expression, that no area of life should be denied to any citizen. But we see a different logic operating in the Catholic Church that was evidenced in the conflict in my parish, that yes, we see the dignity, we preserve the dignity, but there's a stop sign to say, you stop here. We acknowledge who you are, we love you, but your capacity, your God-given opportunity to express yourself in consensual relationship is denied, because the expression of yourself is described in such strong and violent language that it creates a criminalizing church. Because when you criminalize someone, it doesn't mean that you have to physically take them into a jail and lock them. It means that you deny them their rights to a spiritual life. You deny access to participation. You deny the beingness of a person because you don't follow the logic of human rights. You don't follow the logic of saying that somebody is created in the image of God, because to follow that logic would mean to allow the expression of personhood and all its implications. So we find a very curious situation where we've got a constitutional court and a Bill of Rights that decriminalizes, and we have a church that denies the full expressions of personhood, that limits the expression of human dignity and rights. And I think, the other time I was thinking that maybe there should be a passport to go into churches, because they are operating on such a different logic from the Constitution, from the Bill of Rights, that you literally in one country with two different logics of what it means to be a human being living fully in the expression of who you are, because this is the fundamental argument. It is about being a human being. This is the logic of the Constitution of South Africa, which maintains at its center the human dignity and equality of all persons to its fullest logical conclusion. And so we find the church in conflict with the logic of freedom, the logic of full expression, full humanity, and seeks to restrict that humanity with incredibly strong language that produces in the community advocates that are not only anti the expression of the humanity of LGBTI persons, but they're anti-LGBTI persons because of the language. So you have two counter cultures operating in the same space, in the same church. And we were not able to find a middle ground. And for me, the fact that the language of the catechism that is central to my faith created a group of people opposed, intent on criminalizing same-sex relationships, consensual relationships, criminalizing the rights, extracting, refusing to allow human beings made in the image of God to express their lives to the maximum and to the fullest. And so the crisis that we face has nothing to do with the government. It has everything to do with the contradictions of our faith, where one thing is said, human dignity, love of God, access for everybody, and then there are stop signs everywhere with extremely strong language. And what I saw in my parish and what I heard from the protesters against LGBTI persons was a language of hate, a language of non-acceptance, a language of rejection, a language of criminalization. And I realized that criminalization has nothing to do with bars, has nothing to do with putting people in jail. It has everything to do with what we believe in our minds and how we express that. And I feel that unless there is a coherence in the teachings of the church and an elimination of the strong language, that we, in a context of decriminalization, criminalize LGBTI persons, we are the ones that should stand in court and be accused of criminalization and the lack of allowing the equality of human beings to have its full measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nontando. Strong language is necessary, you know, but it's the language of love. While Nontando was speaking, I thought of a part of a poem by a fellow called John Bradburn, who was an English vagabond who went to work with the lepers in Mutemwa, in what was then Rhodesia. He was killed by terrorist bullets. The part of the poem that I read, that I remembered, was this: God's love within you is your native land, so search none other, never more depart. for you are homeless, save God keeps your heart. And sadly, that's what so many people espousing religion forget. That love counters difference. It counters sorrow. It counters blackness. It counters Jewishness. It counters gender. It counters hate everywhere, or should. Well, good. Now, we move on now to the presentation of my sister. She understands what I mean. Ngozi Nwasu Juba Kedu, who is the chair of the Interfaith Diversity Network of West Africa. Welcome, my sister.